order the Monday, January 14th school board session. Sarah, could you take the roll?
Aldrich.
Here.
Bowerman.
Yes, ma'am.
Christensen.
Here.
McKeon.
Here.
Peterson. Here. Tomzik.
Here.
And Tucker.
Here. And now we will do the oath of our new school board members. So if you would like to stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I've never done this before, so bear with me. I swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
and that I will discharge faithfully the duties
and that I will discharge faithfully the duties
of the office of school board member
of the office of school board member
of Independent School District number 720
of Independent School District number 720
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
If everybody would like to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is We Are Shakopee Schools. Good news item, and Mike is going to take care of that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to share some good news. We have 7 Shakopee High School choir students who have been selected to participate in this year's Minnesota ACDA 910 Honor Choir. Our students will prepare music alongside honored singers from around the state. The grand finale will be a performance on February 14th at Central Lutheran Church in Minneapolis at the annual Minnesota Music Educators Conference. And now we want to recognize the individual students. We have a certificate, and when I call your name, and we'll bring you over here and have you want
Sure.
right here, right here. Where do you
No,
want?
up there's fine, great.
All right, and right here, Brooke Geis. Group photo, individual, tell me what
Let's
you
do
want.
individual.
All righty.
Ready? There you go. Perfect.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Judith Villalobos. Maggie Clark.
Good job.
Luke Wills. Aaron Dumalog. Autumn Haig. Jillian Pryor. And then we've got 3 teachers that we'd like to celebrate this evening as well. Alex Gerleman. Thank you for all you do. Get your photo here too.
Any other two are not here?
Well, we'll still in there. Michael Kovic and Bridget Keenan. Give those 2 a round of applause. say a couple words about what the kids are doing and what's involved in this? This is quite an honor, so
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, sure. So the students, a couple months ago, began the process of sort of preparing auditions for the state honor choir. For that audition, they have to submit a recording of a scale, and then what was the other piece we submitted? Yes, yeah. So they do an excerpt of like a solo. Wait, remind me. Yes, Aaron's not this time. So it's the scale and the solo, and then those recordings are all sent in to the state, and judges listen to over 2,000 submissions from around the state of Minnesota for these 3 honor choirs. There's a treble choir, a tenor bass choir, and then a mixed choir. And each of those groups has about 75 members. So you can get kind of an idea of the selectivity out of those 2,000 students. They're taking about like 225 or so. So these students really are exceptional and should be recognized for this honor. They'll perform on Valentine's Day downtown, and right now we're just kind of preparing the music, and then that day they go down to the conference where they'll work with, depending on which choir they're in, there's a guest conductor for each group that are collegiate level conductors or kind of known around the Midwest or even the country for being these sort of hotshot conductors. And so it's a chance for them to work with some really, really great musicians, both in their choir and then the conductor themselves. So we're really, really proud of the work they've done.
Awesome. So are we. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next item on our agenda, if you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. If you want to go, you can go. But,
You're really selling this.
Scott's not here anymore. We don't know. You felt like a teacher saying, you can leave.
I got all these little notes next.
We're down, just done, or?
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah. My wife lasted that long.
All right, so we'll move on to the consideration of the agenda as presented and additions. Sir, are there any additions?
No, they're not.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. That's how it goes. All right, moving on. We will go to our organizational business. First is the election, and I'll just read what it says here. The acting chairperson will accept nominations for the office of chairperson and will proceed through the election of that individual. The newly elected chair will proceed with the nominations and the election of the vice chair, the clerk, and the treasurer. Officers for the past year were Chair Mr. Swanson, Vice Chair Mr. Haas, Clerk Ms. Hallett, and Treasurer Ms. Tucker. So I will now have a nomination for the office of chair. Reggie Bowerman has been nominated as chair. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Can I have a motion to close the nominations?
I so move.
You got that, Matt? Judy? All in favor of Reggie as chair, signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Reggie, you are chair. Yay.
Now we're up on the chairs.
And now we'll move to music for chairs.
I think we need like the Keystone Cops soundtrack or something.
We're gonna sit there for a while. You want your coat?
You want to switch your Oh, can I be Angela for the night?
It's a tough job being Angela Tucker. Might not want it to.
So actually, my first role as chair, I'm going to
throw a monkey wrench in, we actually have a student join us that was not here moments ago.
Oh.
And so we're going to recognize her and congratulate her on her all-state choir participation. So Mike, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm gonna guess this is Judith Villalobos. Nope.
Yes.
You scared me now. That's the only certificate I have left.
Reggie, do you want to come for a picture too?
Your chair now.
You want to finish it though? Just.
Okay, that's just mine.
For continuity, yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay, taking a photo with us?
And he's a one-man officer slate right now.
There you go.
Chief cook and bottle washer.
High exalted and judging execution.
All right, now we'll resume with the election for the vice chair. Can I have a nomination for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Judy Tomzik.
Okay, Judy Tomzik nominated. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? And are there any other nominations?
Yes.
I'll have a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have Paul and Matt, I believe. With that, all those in favor of Judy Tomzik as vice chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Congratulations, Judy.
Thank you.
You want to come join? Traditionally, we have the vice chair sit here, so you're going to move
No,
now.
I think we're fine for now, aren't we? Or is that?
Nope, nope.
Okay.
Hide a little bit.
I can't go anywhere without stuff, so it takes a little. Trip over my purse. I won't. No problem, did I? Oh, I did bring them.
This is the fire drill portion.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we'll move on with election of the clerk. Can I have nominations for the office of clerk?
I'll nominate Angela Tucker.
Angela Tucker for clerk. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? And are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I need a motion to close nominations.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
Christine? Jess? Pretty soon the clerk's gonna be noting all that. All those in favor of Angela Tucker as clerk, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Congratulations, Angela.
Oh, my
Just stayed standing.
Joe and I always choose you and I can like catch.
I just turned Siri on. Hopefully she doesn't talk.
All right, now we'll move to treasurer. Can I have nominations for treasurer?
I nominate Joe Aldrich.
Okay, Joe Aldrich for treasurer. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? And are there any other nominations? Hearing none, take a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
Okay, second. Second, Angela. So Matt and Angela. So with that, all those in favor of Joe Aldrich as treasurer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Congratulations, Joe. You're now the treasurer. All right, so we have our slate of officers for the new year. You want to just get up and sit down? You want to stay in the same place, or you want to move over?
We can move just because everybody else is.
Thank you.
All right. These guys are situated.
Here's your coat. Thank you.
So now we've got a series of items that are kind of administrative in nature that we have to go through every year. Bear with me and bear with us as we go through these, because it's going to be a little reading and a little formal. So the next one that we're going to do is the designation of official depository and additional depository, number 3 that's on the agenda. The school board must designate an official bank depository. Old National Bank is currently the official depository for the district. We will keep funds in the official depository, however, we may invest monies through a number of depositories. And additional include, you can see the list there, Hometown Bank, Wells Fargo, US Bank, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, etc. So I am looking for a motion to approve the designation of official depository and additional depositories as presented. Sorry.
So moved.
Okay, Matt, is there a second?
Second.
Paul, is there any discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. We'll move on to the designation of official newspaper. The school board must designate an official newspaper. The Shakopee Valley News is our official newspaper and the only local publication that meets the legal requirements for an official newspaper. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the designation of Shakopee Valley News.
I so move.
Okay, we have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. For Christie, all those in favor, or is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Shakopee Valley News as the official newspaper signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Amanda, you get to stay.
Thank goodness. You can stay in that chair.
You can shift over one if you want.
I'm the only one that just gets to hang out.
We don't want you feeling left out.
Item 6.4, legal assistance. The district uses more than one firm for its legal businesses, depending upon the type of expertise that is needed. So the recommendation here is to authorize superintendent or his designee to secure legal advice during the year as needed. Looking for a motion to approve that.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Matt. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. 6.5, compensation. The school board must adopt a resolution setting the compensation for the individual members. Compensation is currently $4,500 annually, with an additional $500 per year for the chair and the vice chair. We need a recommendation to approve the compensation as presented.
So moved.
Joe, second?
Second.
Christie, is there any discussion on this item? Okay, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Let's move to item 6.6, board meeting schedule for the calendar year, and I think we have an attachment if it's something you've looked at. The dates and times for the calendar year 2019 are presented, so we need a motion to approve that. Can we have that motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Judy. Second?
I'll second.
I think I heard Christie.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion?
Go ahead.
Can this be amended periodically as needed?
Yes, we have on occasion in the past had to, and can do so, yes.
Okay.
We also recognize that individuals sometimes can't make a meeting. I already know that there's a couple of times I won't make a meeting because I have scheduled vacations out of the country. So we recognize that happens, but there are times when we've actually moved the meeting too. We try not to because we have to go through some hoops to do so, but it's possible. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah, now the best time to have a conversation about the recommendation. We've had this schedule posted for a while, previous few board meetings. There's a recommendation on this document about removing or postponing or rescheduling a board retreat this winter. Just wanted to kind of talk about that, or Mike here, what you wanted to kind of outline why that suggestion is being made.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. The date that was on the original schedule is Saturday, February 16th. And in looking at that, and I'm good with wherever we end up, but the thought being, kind of looking at it through the eyes of new board members, this is a busy week. You've got an org meeting today, phase 1 training tomorrow night, phase 2 training all day Wednesday, and then possibly the MSBA conference Thursday and Friday. 9 days later, we have a work session, type of board meeting on January 28th, another work session on February 11th, and those types of things seem pretty similar with the winter retreat. So we might be better served by perhaps moving that somewhere kind of mid-March to mid-April or canceling altogether. And again, I'm good either way. The other thought being is, that is a Saturday of a long weekend, which in some ways is here nor there, but also knowing that you've got work balances and life balances, and sometimes that creates an unnecessary conflict with a family trip or something of the like. So,
Yeah. What's the sense of the board in terms of we make our own schedule? What are the thoughts?
I guess my question is, what do we typically do on these retreats?
I'll just speak, and Angela and Matt are chiming in as well, but that agenda is usually established in consultation with the board and superintendent. So what do we think we want to talk about?
It's usually a venue where we're able to have a little bit more in-depth discussion. We frequently have had it on a Saturday, so it's just a different setting. I mean, a lot of times they're not even in this room, we go to a different setting also for the purpose of kind of getting out of this environment. But the agenda topics are to be determined. It's normal business, but we're not gonna take any action because it's not a business meeting. But we would allow, or I guess since I'm chair, I would solicit and have in the past, solicit the input of the board to say, gosh, we'd like to have a discussion about. I'll throw out an example. I know there's been a lot of talk about a facilities task force, and we need to have discussions about that. That could be a venue to have that. Could happen in a learning session too.
Okay.
I think two big things that we've tried to anchor to are the strategic planning and how are we doing on our goals and some report cards and whatnot. The other thing is board development. We've done things in the past like strength finders, getting to know each other as we're coming together as a newly formed group. How do we want to operate? What are our communication protocols, that kind of thing. It is definitely roll up your sleeves, a little bit deeper dive. So it's more longer term work. But it is nice to kind of get out of the month to month grind. I, for one, in terms of having one, I would prefer to have one sometime in March, April. If that doesn't work, you know, we do have a summer one. We've typically had a winter one that's been longer term, and then a summer one that we do on a Monday night, because summer weekends, there's only never enough of them. So we don't want to invest a Saturday in the summer. But I like that rhythm, but if that's too much or doesn't work, I certainly understand that we can figure out ways to cover some of those topics in morning sessions or work sessions. What's everybody else think?
Other thoughts?
I like the idea of moving it from the February date to maybe a month, 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
I know I have a conflict that weekend with work, so I wouldn't be able to attend.
Yeah, I mean, I have a conflict every Saturday, but my work will give me time off for a scheduled meeting, but in return, they'd like to have as
Notice.
much advance notice as
Yeah.
possible.
Sure, understood.
I think advance notice for all of us would be important, because people are coming and going all the time, so. I participated in that short one this summer.
Okay, couldn't remember.
And it was really helpful to have, as you had all your people as resources right there. So there were a lot of conversations with board members, but there were also conversations with various people in the cabinet. So that, I found it I learned a lot.
I find it to be very beneficial to do something at some point. Time-wise, I don't really care. But just as we have all you new board members, just to kind of get some feedback on our strategic plan, so that we all know we're going in the right direction.
I'd rather have it done sooner than later, just because of how many new members there are.
Sure. Chance, that's another thing, that having a new board like we do now too, not just a new board that happens every couple of years, but we've got, relatively speaking, 4 new members, so you're right, it's that forming component. So what I guess I'm hearing is we may have some time conflicts with that particular date, so I think we can kind of scratch that date. Can we ask you, Mike and Sarah, to look at the calendar for another time in that, we'll say March, no later than mid-April, but maybe March would be a good time, because that way we're not pushing it out too far. Are you saying, Paul, we need to stay away from a Saturday, or if we give you enough
No,
notice?
if you give me enough notice, and state statute's pretty clear, they have to give me time off.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe we won't constrain ourselves to what's on the calendar, and you can look for a Saturday.
And that may replace a work session or
Good.
something, if
Good.
you know, so to Paul's point, this will change or evolve over time.
Good. You just said, did we want to look Saturdays only, or did we want to look at a Monday evening? You just mentioned replacing the work session, and again, I'm not suggesting that,
Well, speaking only for myself, I like the idea of Saturday because it allows us, again, to take as long as we need to, get as deep as we need to, and we don't have to mess with current business.
I agree.
I prefer Saturday, but if that meant we cancel a Monday work session, if we're gonna ask staff and everybody to maybe be available on Saturday, maybe give them the Monday night off.
So we'll see what the agenda warrants.
That sounds reasonable.
Okay.
And 9 to 2 is worked as a time on Saturdays?
Angela prefers 5 a.m. start.
And we know she's an early worker.
9 to 2 is typically work.
Yeah, perfect.
It's before 9, I'm coming in on the job.
Okay, so the action is, a couple points here. We're gonna ask Mike and Sarah to look for a date as soon as you can, kind of identify a Saturday, put it out to us, and folks can respond to that in case you have something that's, oh, no, I know I can't do it that date. So be flexible as you can. So then, back to the item on the agenda, the recommendation is to approve this particular meeting list with that stricken, can't remember what it is. English teacher.
Actually, they both work as the best parts.
So I was right both ways, okay.
You're good.
Good. So then it would be this particular, is there any other discussion on the list of meetings as is? And by the way, notice too that, and I applaud Sarah for doing this has all the committee meetings. The committees haven't been formed yet, we're actually gonna do that, so they are subject to change as well, but it tends to be kind of good to have these all set, and there's a reason for that, so right now, this is what we're saying would happen.
I have a question in regards to school board facilities committee. Is that the committee that the board has talked about in the past, creating to look at facilities for future?
So the facilities committee, we're getting a little ahead. This is kind of part of the stuff we talked about, perhaps at the retreat as well, but the thought has been, and it's gonna be the will of the board, but the thought has been, we haven't had a facilities committee for the last few years, we've had a BOC committee that has performed that function. So effectively, we've had a facilities committee, we just haven't called it that. So this will now be called the facilities committee. The facilities task force would be something different. That would actually be something that we need to discuss, how we're gonna form it, what its purpose is, how long, the scope, that sort of thing. Facilities committee would be a standing committee that we need to have that meets on a regular basis to deal with issues relating, obviously, to facilities. And it would certainly tie and dovetail with the task force. But different. Okay. All right, so if there's no more discussion, I will look for a motion to accept this meeting list, including the removal of the meeting, with the provision that you guys are gonna look for a Saturday, probably in March, that we can hold the.
I make that motion?
Okay.
Second.
Okay, I heard Joe first, so Christie and Joe. All those in favor of this particular meeting schedule signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, where are we at here? 6.7, board meetings on holidays. So the board's gonna occasionally take action to allow board meetings on a holiday. In this case, Columbus Day is an example of that. So the recommended action is that I'm looking for a motion to approve the board meeting on Columbus Day in 2019,
I'll
this
make
year.
that motion.
Thank you, Andrew. Second, Paul. Any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Okay, informational item is 6.8. This is what I was alluding to a moment ago. I'll probably follow a procedure that it's worked well in the past for me and for other chairs. Now that I'm chair, I will probably, as early as tomorrow, get something out to you all electronically that lists all of the standing committees and the liaison assignments we have, some other committees. And I'll ask for you to give me your interest, your preferences, frankly, and then I'll do my best to accommodate that and make assignments. So please be looking for that, and please respond as quickly as you can, because we do have committee meetings coming up pretty quickly. So the sooner we can get that set, the better. And I would ask for your forbearance and understanding, flexibility, because if everybody says, oh, I want to be on this, well, there's only so many that can be on it. So
You've had like 10 minutes as chair. You don't have
Yeah.
this done yet?
no, I do not. No, I do not.
Well, one question on that.
Yes.
We've had that lingering issue of, do we have a formal board communications committee, or is that the external meeting group that met tonight? I think it's good to discuss so people know what they'd be signing up for.
Great. It existed this past year, and it was separate from the group that met tonight, which was the Citizens Communication Advisory Committee. The Communications Committee is different than that, kind of like the Citizens Financial Advisory Committee is different than the Finance Committee. So again, it's what's the will of the board. We have the capacity to do it. It's whether or not you think it's sufficient to just meet periodically with broader than the board in the council setting versus having a committee and then having the kind of citizens involved. So,
Well, if you've had one in the past, why is it no longer? Oh, because the citizens, or?
no, we've had one. Matt's raising the question, should we have one? Do we need one?
I'm wondering why we got rid of it. if we
I
had
don't know
one.
that it ever met last year, the board committee only. I think it kind of got folded into the external group with the external advisors. Sarah, did the communications committee meet at all?
I'm following that communication, that sounds very accurate to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was folded, this particular year, to 2018, it was folded into the citizens group.
Yeah, I thought that was the intention, was
Okay.
to have board members on with the citizens, not necessarily have the standalone.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that, because when I look at the list that exists today, Sean, Mary, it would have been you, and somebody else were on the Tony, we're on the communications committee. But what I'm hearing, we get to decide this, folks. If we don't need, because this is the one we have previously identified as a consistent standing committee.
Yeah.
If we feel like that can be folded into the existing citizens committee, then that's not one I will solicit membership for. Want to try that? Would you see how it works? Sounds like it's kind of what we did this past year anyway.
And how often does that citizens committee meet?
It's met, well, that's
I've
really
only heard of this
dictated by our communications group calling it, but how often have you?
We try to do once a month or every other month.
Oh, okay, good. I wasn't aware of
Yeah,
that.
when the citizens committee meets, if we all show up, are we violating open meeting law?
Well, we would designate members from here to represent us. there.
Okay.
And we would pick something less than 4, because anytime you have 4 in quorum. That doesn't mean others can't, because for example, at the Citizens Financial Advisory Committee, we have had situations where Angela and I were frequently the representatives, but we'd have others who were sitting kind of in the audience. That's okay. You can observe, you can, be there, but we would designate somebody to represent. Okay?
I'm comfortable with the external only, or the larger committee only as, sort of not a formal board committee.
I'm sensing a consensus around.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so then I will make no standing committee, but the expectation that we will have board representation on the citizens committee.
Yes.
You got that too, Crystal? Okay, very good. So, be looking for that as possibly as early as tomorrow. I'll dig up the form I used a couple years ago. All right, item 6.9, the fund continues. Use of facsimile signature. We need a resolution adopted so the district can utilize check signing software. You want this, Joe. Trust me, you want
Yes.
this. Treasurer.
No, no, come on, you want to sign every paycheck every 2 weeks?
You want to see the money moving? There you go, that's how you do it.
I sign one paycheck twice a month and that's enough.
So the recommended action is that we will utilize the check signing software and facsimile signatures for, in some cases, chair, clerk, and treasurer to sign all the checks issued by the school district, except checks that are written on activity accounts. The activity accounts will be signed by both the director of finance, Jeff in the back, and a district accountant after all signatures are obtained on the supporting documentation. So I need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Joe?
Second.
Second, Matt. Is there any discussion on that item?
I got plenty of pens and jokers. Just throwing it out there.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Investment of funds, item 6.10. We typically take action to allow the director of finance to invest surplus cash prior to the time that they believe approval is necessary from the board. This irregularity can lead to situations where it can create investment opportunity at different times. It's impossible to do this in a real timely way if we can get pre-approval. I'm summarizing. So the action here is we're approving the director of finance and his designee to be given the authority to do that investment prior to our approval within the limitations set by law to complete wire transfers and notification. And it's pretty straightforward. It's something we've done every year.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Angela. Is there a second?
Second.
Christie, any discussion on that item?
Yeah, just on what basis would these investments be made? Would it be like a weekly thing, a monthly thing?
Jeff, you want to comment?
Can you repeat that, please?
On what basis would this be made? Would it be a daily thing, a weekly thing, a monthly thing?
On the investment of funds,
Yes.
probably, it's probably more of a monthly kind of transaction, so. Yeah, we'll prepare like a cash flow scenario for the fiscal year. And so we'll have dates that, we can make investments, we know we receive property tax revenue, so we kind of know when those dates are. I would say it's probably a monthly.
Monthly. Okay.
Than a daily kind of action.
And this is kind of opportunistic, right? It's to, so the cash is just not sitting in the bank earning nothing.
Right,
This is a
yeah,
chance to at least
yeah.
earn
You know, where it says that we receive funds on a kind of irregular, that's true,
Yeah.
certainly with property taxes, that, all significant portion of our property taxes will come in October, November. And then we use those funds throughout the year, so we invest those.
Okay, what types of things are we investing in?
Well, we're governed by state law, so it's typically certificates of deposits, bank notes, all has to be covered by FDIC insurance.
Okay.
By definition, it should be short term.
And short term,
Yeah.
and short term,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
270 days typically would be the longest.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff. Any other questions
You
on
bet.
that one? Good insight, all right. Looking for a motion to approve that. Well, I already had that, actually. That
Yep.
was a discussion. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Move on to item 611, electronic funds transfer. There's a Minnesota statute that requires the district to have controls relating to electronic fund transfers. So the recommendation is to let, again, the director of finance and/or his designee be given the authority to make electronic fund transfers, that's EFT, through the official depository. I don't think I'll read the rest of this. You can. Pretty standard. So I'm looking for a motion to approve EFT authorization.
I so moved.
Thank you, Judy.
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Is there any discussion on this item?
I'm assuming this is just regular paying bills online?
Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Item 6.12, prepayment of bills. There are times when prompt payment of bills allows us to receive a discount, and in some instances, we can't take advantage of that if we have to wait for formal approval. So this allows the director of finance, again, or designee, to pay bills, prepay these bills before approval so we can take advantage of those discounts. Again, pretty straightforward. Looking
I'll
for-
make that motion.
Thank you,
I'll second
Angela.
it.
Thank you, Christie. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Item 6.13, appointment of district physicians. There's times when the district has need of physician services. So we're looking for a motion to approve the appointment of Shakopee Park Nicollet Medical Center as a school district physicians for 2019 calendar year.
I'll move to that.
Thank you, Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any discussion on this item?
What's an example of a service that the district may need them for?
I can't think of one. I'm gonna defer maybe to Sarah. I've been around for a while. Do you know one, Paul?
Yeah, the school nurses, the athletic trainers, I know they need to have physicians serve as a medical director.
I don't know if that's what this is. It very well could be. Do you know, Sarah, is that what this is about?
I think it relates more to an HR item. Would that be correct, Pete?
I'm not familiar with it, but I can give you examples of when you might need one. If you had a bloodborne kind of problem, if you had some sort of pandemic kind of problem, it's kind of a rare. I would say it'd probably be rare that we bring a physician in, but it's possible.
Okay.
The supervision that you're talking about, Paul, I think might be something different. I think this is more of an acute, urgent, critical need.
Okay.
And so this just identifies, oh, we can go to Park and Collect. They've been on as long as I can remember, frankly. I don't remember us using them unless anybody remembers an instance. Yeah, I don't know, so, knock on wood. All right, we have a motion. Is there any, we have a motion, right, on this one?
Yes.
This one, track. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Two more. 6.14 LEA designation. This is the local education agency designation. It was made to ensure compliance with the appropriate federal statutes and regulations. The designee also acts with responsible for all matters relating to administration. In this case, the recommended action is to approve and designate Mike, in this case, as superintendent, as our representative for 2019. That motion, please.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Matt.
Second.
See, I heard Joe. Any discussion on this item?
Yeah, exactly. I guess I don't understand how this works.
Mike, you want to chime in?
Yeah, there are a number of federal requirements and even state requirements where they look for the LEA, the local education agency, and somebody to sign off. And everything from, there's different assurances, compliance with federal laws, statutes, different things. And so they want one person who's really, and typically that is, I can't think of any cases where that isn't the superintendent. So it's just kind of it's formally granting the authority that, you know, and it's an expectation in my role too, that, you know, we're gonna make sure we're in compliance and then sign off.
So we're just kind of giving you the tools to do your job.
It'd be really tough without that to
Okay.
comply with anything, so,
Oh,
yeah,
that'd
I would
make it a lot
appreciate
easier.
that. Yeah. Well,
There's online stuff as well, I mean, there's,
Yeah.
right, accepting of the grants and funding, and all that stuff online too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any additional discussion on that? All those in favor of designating Mike, in this case superintendent, as our representative, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. 6.15, designation of identified official of authority for the MDA External User Access Recertification System. Wow. MDE requires that we designate a person with the authority to comply with this security standard, which states all users have access, states that all users' access rights to the state systems have to be reviewed and recertified. This official will assign job duties and authorize external users access to MDE secure systems for the LEA. So again, in this instance, the recommendation is to authorize Mike Redmond and Sarah Kane, in this case, to act as the identified official with authority, Iowa, for Shakopee Public Schools as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Angela. Second?
A second.
Thank you, Christie. Any discussion on this item?
The only thing I'll add, Reg, real
Yes.
quick is both 6.14 and 6.15 are not generally a part of a reorg, but they're annual motions that the district is asked to do. So why not roll it into a reorg so that we automatically do that?
Agreed.
Both of the language for 14 and 15 has come from MDE in both cases. Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that item? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of this recommendation to put Mike and Sarah as the Iowa for our district, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. All right. So we got through some of the blocking and tackling that we have to do every year, the exciting stuff. Now we're going to move to another exciting one, consent items. And for those who are new to the board, you've probably had taken time prior to coming to look at the consent items. These items are those that are generally administrative in nature. We don't pull them in discussion. You can always ask that something be pulled to discuss. But in this case, I'm looking for a motion to accept the consent items as presented.
Actually, I would move to pull 7.1.3 for discussion. I'm not comfortable voting for someone's termination if I don't have the information as to the why.
Okay, some of that may be private information that we cannot discuss. So I would turn to, before we can pull the item, but let's find out, Scott, if that's an item we can even have a discussion about.
Keith.
Or Keith, sorry.
We need to go into closed session.
Yeah.
We'll have a discussion on personnel.
Okay. Then we either need to pull the item, and this is actually the revised, because I still have the original agenda, we don't have the, I know it changed, but. Okay, yeah. I still have the old agenda here. So we either need to pull this item, or you need to be comfortable with the action being taken.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this person's a veteran, which veteran preference laws would apply.
Well, we would rely upon our HR group to be compliant with all laws.
Okay, but the buck kind of stops with us. And in good conscience, I can't do that.
Well, we can pull for consent, and then we'll take action on the item, and you can vote as you
Okay,
feel appropriate.
thank you.
Okay.
Can we take that in closed session if the employee hasn't agreed to that? Because I remember something we did earlier, that first the employee had to agree to it, and then we could take it into closed session.
That, I believe, is a different item.
Okay.
That was in regards to coaching, and there was a state statute that required that. This is because we're talking about some privacy data, I believe, is why we have to go to closed session. Is that correct, Keith? Okay. So what we'll do is we're gonna pull the item 7.1.3 approval for termination from consent. We'll take care of consent, and we'll bring this back in probably new business.
New business action.
All right, so we're gonna move 7.1.3, and that will become now 10.1.1.
Yeah. 11.
Oh, sorry, 11.
11,
Yep,
11.1.
Sorry. Okay. So, with that change to consent, is there any other comments or discussion of consent?
Just a question, what is an unaffiliated contract? Sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions.
You're doing good. That's what it's for.
So unaffiliated is a person who isn't represented by a bargaining unit.
Okay.
So they're anybody who isn't represented. In our district, people who aren't represented by a bargaining unit are professional level people who don't have a principal or teacher's license.
Okay, so would this be like an at-will employee, sort of?
It'd be me, it'd be Jeff, it'd be this, for the most part, our professional staff, accountants. There's more of us. There's,
Okay, but are they at-will employees? Or are they?
yes.
Okay.
Are they at-will employees if they have a contract? I don't think so.
Yeah, you're still an at-will employee technically under it, but yeah, they have contracts, but they're still at-will.
That ain't right. It can still be released. Okay, any additional discussion on consent?
I'll make a motion to approve consent items pulling 7.1.3.
I'll second.
Second from Paul. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving consent as so modified signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, we'll move on to 8. There is nothing, but 9 is old business action items. A, if you want to come on up, we're going to take care of a few change orders. And a lot of times, just for the benefit of the new board members, I'm not exactly sure. I missed the last BOC meeting, so I'm not exactly sure why we decided to put these on the agenda. A lot of times these have been consent items. But at the same time, maybe it's just a good chance to kind of expose the new board.
Right, I think a part of it was because of the holidays, we've got, usually they only take place once a month. So we have a little backlog here, so I think that was part of it.
Okay.
There's 3 of them versus 1. And like you mentioned, I think with the BOC kind of being not dismantled, but no longer calling it the BOC oversight committee, we wanted to make sure that this board was comfortable with what we're presenting.
Good. Okay, so we'll take item, the first one, item 9.1, change order number 23. If you want to just hit for the benefit of the full board, but just what a change order is, and maybe a couple of the items in it.
So just a quick introduction. Again, my name is Takealot Sopopon with ICS Consulting.
With column A.
Yeah, for that reason. And a change order, so typically what we have is we have a contract and then we have contingency funds because there's always going to be changes, whether it's owner driven, whether it's going to be code related items, things that were missed on drawings, coordination items. So these are all things that we've presented in front of the BOC committee. We've gone through everything and now it's just a matter of getting it approved in front of the board. And so we have contingency funds that are all, again, we're all under budget. These are things that are going to be used, contingency funds to be used to pay for these. Those are just changes to the contract. So we have 3 of them that I'm going to be presenting today.
Okay, you said all of these are coming in under budget?
Yes, exactly. So all of this, we allocate all of our risks and everything right now. We're going to be under budget for the project. So going forward, our facilities committee or whatever we call it is going to be identifying how we use those under budgeted funds.
Okay.
So if you want to just hit an item or two, just as an example.
Yes, the big ticket items on this one, for instance, for 23, if you look at line number 1 and line number 7, those are all kind of code-related items in regards to smoke barriers, fire items. Another big one is number 2, which is interior signage. We modified the signage to our industry standards. We added some of the signage in this thrust stage and changed some of the naming conventions as well. So those are our big ticket items there. Modifications for the fuel oil tank, number 8, that one was some modifications to the grades, so that was an existing fuel oil tank, and we're just making sure that the grades were to code.
So a lot of times these things we don't know until we actually get to the point of doing it and it can be.
And a lot of these are triggered by what we call an RFI, so something that's on a drawing or design. Contractor saying, well, this doesn't quite match up with what the intent is, then there's an RFI, which is a request for, RFIs are requests for information.
Okay.
So that's all documented through
Okay.
our Procore system, which is the project management software.
Okay.
That's how we formally do these.
Okay.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve this particular change order number 23.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Angela. Second?
I'll second.
I heard Joe. Is there any other discussion? You can kind of see what's included. You've had that chance to actually review it on the board book. So if all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. So we've got two more. Unless there's anything, we'll take one at a time because we need to. But A, if there's anything to point out that's unique on the next two.
Yeah, this one was for 50,000. The big ticket item here was the first one was the plank to deck at control room modification, the sequencing of the construction. So instead of using the beam, we had to add some metal plank to the deck. So this is more of a coordination issue. And then that's probably the biggest ticket item on here. Another one was number 3 was this learning stair trim. As you guys may have or may not be aware, we had some issues with some of the learning stair trim kind of breaking off and not working properly, so we had to add some more material to it to make it more structurally stable.
Okay. Any discussion or questions on this item? All right, I'm looking for a motion to accept change order number, what are we on here, 24?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Kristen. Second, Paul. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. And then A, if you want to just take the last one, 25.
And number 25, it's total for 40,000. Big ticket items on here, some coordination of where the academy entrance were. We had some old finishes and tying into those finishes, so we added some more wall tile to those areas. We added a band room sink that wasn't originally on the document. That was a big item, number 5. That was an owner request. And then we added some tile in the existing kitchen storage. And we did get a couple of credits on here as well, so they're not always ads on here.
Exactly, I was going to make that point that there are times we actually save some money too. So.
Always a good one.
Yeah. Any, well, let me get a motion first to accept this.
I'll move it.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions or comments on this one? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, A. In the future, some of these may, sorry, Paul?
I don't think I've ever spent money that.
Yeah,
fast.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that happens from time to time. Thank you very much. A, you continue to do a great job. In the future, there may be occasion when you may see this on the consent. We can always pull it if you need to, but sometimes it's pretty, not commonsensical, but pretty routine. But I think it's a good idea that this time they're actually on the agenda, so you guys can kind of see what these are all about. All right, thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on, just staying with the meeting order as presented. Item 10 is new business discussion, which we don't have, but now we're going to move to the new business item.
No, 9.4.
Oops, sorry, I skipped over. Keith, but you're coming up anyway. You get to stay. Item 9.4, which is the Service Employees International Union, SEIU Food Service Unit Contract. Keith?
Hi, so we have a tentative agreement with our food service unit this year. And we achieved the target. We've had a target of 4.23 for our total settlement. What I sent to you is sort of a highlight with our wages. There was no overall increase except for steps 12, 15, and 20. They were increased by 1.5 in year 1 and 1.5% in year 2. And then in year 2, we had just a little bit of money to spend to reach the 4.23, and that we put 2 cents on all steps per hour. Then the next item is recalibration certification. These staff members can achieve different levels of certification. It's really about running a safe operation. And so those changed a bit, added a new level 4. So we moved some of those levels around, took some money away from some of the lower levels, really to kind of entice people to get that higher level of certification. I'll let you read that. Health insurance, 10% increase for year 1 and a 10.5% increase for year 2. And then last year we had a few extra snow days, and that created some interest and concern from staff, so you can kind of see the language there. whole days for teachers also kind of created some conversation, but at the beginning in the third snow day, and Mike, we can just hope we don't have to call those, right? In the third snow day, though, we'll have some online training for those staff who want to participate in online training. And it's like, again, the total settlement's 4.23, and that's the settlement that we've achieved with all of our groups to date.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the recalibration of the certification, how many people do we have in the level 2, 3?
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one, I'm not exactly
I
sure.
was just curious.
Yeah, I think we have quite a few at 2 and 3.
And if 4, is that new for 2018?
That's brand new, yeah. So I'll get back with you.
Other questions?
I have no questions, but just want to say thank you to Keith for working on this one. This one took some time, so thank you for putting your time in.
Yeah, we all had the group and us who were trying to look at it from the management side. We spent a lot of time talking back and forth. I think we finally got to a pretty good understanding. I think we met kind of some of the needs that were being articulated. Trying to stay within our economic parameter.
Thank you.
I like the rest of, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I like the idea of having the training during snow emergencies. I think that's a really good trade-off.
Yeah, it's an option. I mean, one of the discussion items with that was there are many members of our staff who are working in the schools to be off with their children. So those folks were probably less inclined to have an interest in training, although may participate. But then there's another group that said, you know, we're kind of losing a day of pay, and we said, well, we can look at it from the perspective of training and if people want to participate. So I think most people, I think there will be a good portion, and not most people, but a good portion of people taking the training, but I think there will be some who won't. But we have the training
Yeah, the
that's
option.
needed, we're gonna have that irrespective of this, but this is kind of an extra.
Thank you.
Thanks for everybody involved.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve the contract with SEIU.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so Matt and Angela, any further discussion?
I just want, do they get back pay then? I'm
Yes,
presuming?
yes, back to July 1.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you. Keith, go ahead and stay. Just stay because we moved that item on termination. So we're gonna go back to what was
Okay.
7.1.3. It's now 11.1.1.
Do you want to see some
Yeah.
people name?
No, we're not gonna get to discuss it in any great, we still need to act on it one way or another.
Oh, I see.
We can choose to table, we can do whatever we choose to do, but we pulled it from consent. So this is a approval for termination. I'm guessing there's really not much we can say.
No,
Sure.
I mean, it's not all that complicated, but it is.
Right.
Right.
I guess the one question is, can you confirm that to the best of your knowledge, all applicable laws and statutes have been followed, and all policies and processes?
Yeah.
Okay. Part is obviously aware. This is
Yes.
not news to them.
Yeah, let me say this isn't, so in these documents, you'll often see that word, termination, because it's a word used in school districts, meaning the district took action for you not to be back. Termination is, we terminate teachers through probationary periods at the end of the school year, through budget cuts. So it's termination on the board agenda isn't always a malfeasance or a misbehavior.
For cause
It's-
necessary.
There's probationary periods, there's actions where people lose funding and, you know, circumstances change, we have fewer kids in a particular area. So those are some of, also the reason that the word termination shows up, because the district takes the affirmative action. Resignation, the employee takes the affirmative action to, end the employment.
I guess my question is, can you state whether this is a funding thing or are you prohibited from saying that?
Well, it isn't a funding thing.
One piece of advice or direction I would give, especially to the new board members, is we got a notice on this, and maybe you didn't see it, but you could contact Keith in advance and probably have a one-on-one discussion that might answer some of these questions. So that might be a way to handle it in the future if you have questions like that, because there's something we can't discuss it here.
I did send Sarah an email on that requesting additional information. You know, apparently, you know, I'm not sure what her level of access to this information is yet. But I, you know.
If that brings a heightened level of concern, we can always include some notes about, you know, I can always send out an email to let you know more.
The board can be informed, it's just in this venue for public.
Yeah, it's just
purposes.
public.
Right,
Yeah.
no, I
You have a right
understand
to
that,
know.
and you know, I mean, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I don't feel comfortable doing this without knowing more. You know, I'm a former public employee, and I know that, you know, there's definitely specific nuances to these
Well, as a
things.
public employee, you know that it's not, it's a very prescribed approach that has to be taken to.
Right.
To have something
Yeah.
actually turn up, so it's not as easy as we see on sitcoms on TV. It's a lot
Right.
more complicated at public sector.
No, absolutely. I just, you know, I would feel better knowing that everything's been handled correctly, and not doubting your capabilities or anything like that.
All right, well, there's always so much we can discuss further, so I am going to look for a motion to approve this particular item now, 11.1.1, the termination as recommended.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Angela and Matt, any additional discussion? As limited as it may be. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed?
There we go, motion passes. Yes, you can.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to items 12 and 12.1. This is facilities fee guidelines correction. I'll actually take this one. For the new board members and the old, you may remember, we put a new fee guideline policy in place some time ago, maybe last year. We actually we're still learning, frankly, as we go along. It's still new with our facilities, and we made a change to it in May. We made a subsequent change in July. Okay, so those have all been taken. The change that was made in May, and Sarah knows this and knows I'm going to say this, was just a clerical error, did not get carried forward in the document that was approved in July. So the one that's been sitting there was missing something. And what it is, just to let you know, if you go into the second paragraph under item 2, on the very first page, and I don't know if you have it or Sarah might be able to pull it up. But in short, what it does is that, and just listen to this if you would for a second, groups who use district facilities for fundraising events or activities that require admission fees or collection of money may be subject to 25% of the rental rates. So this is in a lot of cases what raised this, and I'll explain that too. Our youth associations want to use our new facilities. Well, we also have to amortize the fact we've got new facilities, we spend a lot of money on them, and they can generate revenue. So the decision was made to charge a fee, but to discount it for those groups. That was discounted from what had been 50% to 25% back in May. The number didn't get changed. So it just didn't get changed. So when the local basketball association, who runs tournaments using the new facility, saw that, and I was involved in some dialogue with the basketball association and Gary Anger at the time, they said, hey, wait a second, this is supposed to be a lower number. We have a paper trail of this. They even went back to the board minutes. So this is all accurate, it just was a mistake. And so we're taking formal action to recognize this is the document with the correct percentages that we are enacting. So it's really not a change, it's just we're correcting an error. And we're glad we caught it. Any questions with that?
And were the people who had mentioned that, you know, they went back to the notes
Yeah.
and said, were they given this rate?
No one was actually charged in the interim, because I
Oh.
asked that question too, and John Jenkins all aware of this too, and is completely on board. So the good news is that no one had been charged the higher rate in the interim.
Okay.
So we would have made that up, but
Okay.
we didn't have to. Okay, so the policy is not changing, we're just correcting the form that's online, if you will. Okay, so there's really no action to be taken. We're not taking action, Sarah, we're not changing anything, we're just
No, it's
correcting
just
it.
a public clarification.
Can I ask a clarification?
Yeah.
This is for Shakopee Association and organizations. It is not for outside of our school district organizations.
So this is under category 2, which is, the very first paragraph says, City of Shakopee sponsored groups or activities along with, and it describes who, because you fall into one of the categories, and then depending upon the category and the circumstances, the rates apply.
So it would be like South Suburban Youth Football would get.
Exactly, this kind of thing. In this case, it was the Shakopee Basketball Association.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, can I ask a question of how the facility, all of our new facilities are being utilized? Percent of weekends that are full, or do we have any idea so far what capacity that we're at?
I saw you take a breath. You want to take, I know from a conversation I had with John, so.
I know it was 18 and 19.
18
Yeah,
and
18
19.
and 19, right.
And the 19th is, our folks are in there.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
The answer to your question, I believe, is quite low. And Matt, I think, can speak from personal experience, having attended a few events and some of the comments. The facilities have been just getting brands and raves in a positive way, but the capacity, my understanding, is quite high. The occupancy, I should say, is quite high, and we're still early in the process. We could certainly, if it was a desire, we could have John come sometime, and maybe, especially now that we're not quite 6 months into it, maybe give a little bit more time, maybe towards the end of the school year, and have John come and say, here's how things are going, because his position was new as well.
Yeah.
So maybe we can kind of put that as a note to have in the future meetings.
As sort of an aside, I emailed a little bit with John, and he's had requests from outstate even, people who looked at it online and were interested, so.
What is a differentiator to have 10 courts under one roof? I was up at St. Michael Albertville last weekend for a girls' basketball tournament, and it was 8 courts, and they had to have additional games at other area elementaries, and that means people are getting in one building and getting in their cars, and then to be all under one roof. And if we wanted to get really ambitious, we could have 20 courts if we opened up every elementary. That could be like a regional travel tournament where people come in and spend a weekend.
Good for business too.
Which
I
think our restaurants and hotels would love that kind of business.
Sure.
So,
And how, and maybe this is a question for John when he meets with us, but from a facility rental fee perspective, is it fairly competitive with neighboring districts that have somewhat comparable facilities?
Dave, I know that we were part of that discussion early on, and I know that we looked, we always use comparators.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just, well, what does Eden Prairie and Burnsville charge, because they're next door to us, it's what are comparable facilities.
Right.
And I know that all went into the mix. Can I give you chapter and verse now, and John can certainly address that in the future. But that was all part of it. Dave, you want to add
I
anything?
think that's also part of why there were 2 adjustments made, I think.
Yep.
It was, as we start to do this, we want to make sure we're being good partners with our associations, but that we're also competitive with our neighbors or similar facilities. And so, yes, and I think in the agreement too, John has some
This first year. for sure.
latitude to do some negotiating as well. So the goal is to be competitive, but also take advantage. We have great resources here to take advantage of those as well.
We do.
Okay, so that was just a notification item, there's no action to be taken, and the next item is, I think, in the same vein, so Mike, you want to talk about the temporary prohibition check?
Are you able to put that up?
Yep. And with switching favors, this one is about to.
Thank you. Well, that's coming up. A couple things. We just wanted to organize how we work in terms of our leadership team in the district office. And the first thing that I would say when you look at the title, it is a temporary organization chart. This is really now through June. We didn't add any pieces that weren't here. We just wanted to organize so that talented group of people could have 2 things: clarity and efficiency. And we really, in terms of communication, work direction, evaluation, et cetera, and really, we'll evaluate this as we go. We'll take a look at this. How's it working? We can make some changes. But we wanted to put people in the best situation for success and to just really clarify. We had, to be honest, things have been somewhat unsettled in terms of, the leadership in that district office. I would compliment, Dave Orlowski did absolutely a fantastic job. But, and he's done an incredible job helping me to transition and come on board, which is wonderful. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense if he and I are sharing a job. We want to, we want to get the most out of each of us, and so we work. You'll notice that, there's some direct reports going to the assistant superintendent, other direct reports going to the superintendent. Again, trying to gain efficiency, clarity, moving into what I would call a superintendent's office in blue, even trying to gain some efficiency and clarity in our communications folks, in terms of, trying to have some more organization and sense in terms of what is the workflow, where does it come from, where does it go, how does it get channeled through, but thinking of us as kind of a central hub, if you will. And then I know, and I think Dave's done something similar to this, but Sarah and I have been working very hard, to meet with each of what I would refer to as my direct reports, to set up a schedule where it's weekly or every 2 weeks, ongoing running agendas, which we've just rolled out in the last week or two, and even, how do we communicate within those departments, and how do we do with stuff, there's always overlap between, for instance, you look at teaching and learning, and then you look at principals. There's great overlap. How do we communicate? How do we keep people in the loop without having to call a separate meeting every time to do so? So we're taking a stab at it. I feel very good about it. It's I've already had some great conversations with some of the directors, and I'm still getting a sense of the things they're doing and how hard they're working, but really just trying to, I'll say it one more time, provide clarity and provide efficiency, for them in doing their jobs. And so, and again, the title of this is a temporary org chart. We'll certainly, our group will evaluate it, and certainly we'll have future discussions as well. But I'm happy to answer questions. Before I do that, there were two pieces that weren't found on previous org charts, and it's kind of hard to see, but on the far, kind of towards the bottom of the left and the bottom of the right, I thought it was important. I believe that we want to kind of elevate the conversation in terms of the importance in just having the word equity on there. We have a principal of equity programming in Christy Ward, and you'll notice a dark line going to the assistant superintendent. She's a principal at CFC and a principal of equity programming, so she's Dave's direct report. But this is such an important topic and something we need to be able to do well district-wide. You'll also notice kind of a thinner line coming to me. And on the right side, you'll notice one that isn't attached, and I've been holding meetings, and it's community partnerships. And we've got some folks that have been doing great work, and I wanted to take the time to sit down with each of them. That would be John Janke, Jenny Ames, and then, how does that connect even with community education? And you've already talked a bit about Mr. Janke's job. He's got parts that are facilities, which really tie kind of to operations. He's got other parts of activities, which kind of tie into high school. And then I had a meeting, with Jenny earlier today, and she's working on partnerships and volunteer coordination and grant writing and things. So I want to get a better sense, because they're doing a variety of different tasks. And how do we know they're in this, we know they're in the mix, we know their work is important, so it's not meant by not having them connected in. That's just trying to give the new superintendent time to at least get it close to right, if not exactly right. And so we'll figure out, who's their direct supervisor and in which situation. And but it's not as, some are pretty clean. You just draw a line and you go, yep, that's almost always there. Others are a little bit more complex in nature. And those two positions are doing what I would say myriad tasks that don't necessarily align. They're doing great work, they're working hard, and they're doing great things on behalf of the district. But in case you're wondering why that's not connected. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Go ahead.
No, you go this time.
Well, as an HR guy who speaks org chart on a daily basis, I applaud this. I applaud first and foremost the role that you created for Dave here as one of our legendary principals to be managing and coaching and mentoring our building principals. I think that's the phrase that we use in our company is the highest and best use of your talents. So I think that's wonderful. Secondly, I think, Mike, it's a manageable number of direct reports for you. I believe at one time Gary had 29 or 30, and as an HR professional, we say we need to be on 7 to 10. You're probably not able to effectively manage. I know in education, being so much leaner, we don't often hit that. But I think this is a well thought out, well planned org chart, and I think it's, as you pointed, it's helping you in your time of assessment, and it will get us through June, and then you'll revisit at that point in time.
Actually, I'm glad you said that first. Yes, I think it was a nice transition from acting superintendent to assistant superintendent. And it looks obviously like there's some really important work happening through that assistant superintendent. Since that's a position that we started in August, or September maybe, it's something we'll have to discuss sooner rather than later. So even though this is good through June, that's a discussion that how we're gonna work things out. Looks like there's important work being done there.
Very much.
And you'll notice again, there's a thin line going from the assistant superintendent to data and testing. And we could have added all the direct reports under each of the directors, but for clarity didn't want to. Even though, Nancy Toole, the director of teaching and learning, she's the direct supervisor of that data and testing office. You know better than I that we have somebody in that assistant superintendent's office, and Dave, who's done a ton of work in that area. He's got great expertise. I don't know, even if we didn't draw the little line, we might not have been able to sever the tie, but I think that's done purposely, knowing that somebody that's got a specialized skill set has invested heavily and been working really, I think, closely and in partnership with Ford as well. It's also honoring that. And there are probably other connections like that I'm just simply not aware of in other departments.
Charts and graphs, is that one?
But again, the work, and I can't tell you that how enthused I am. Just the little bit of time getting organized and having some clarity and meeting with folks and really starting to get after some digging in, and it's been enjoyable getting to know how hard people are working, what they're trying to do, and then trying to find ways to support that. And I know that like Jeff Priest and I had a meeting last week, and I think my knowledge just in that short time of where we are, how things are being operated in that department increased by a large multiplier. So thank you, Jeff.
This is very helpful to me. I'm glad to have it a few months ago. I didn't know all this, so.
Yeah, in my time, I've seen some pretty convoluted org charts, but this is not that, so thank you for keeping it simple for people like me.
Me too.
All right, any other comments or discussion on this item? Again, no approval taken. Thank you for the information of Mike and the clarity. I'm sure your staff supports that as well. All right, we'll move on to item 13, which is committee reports. I don't think we've had any yet, other than, Crystal, is there anything that you can report from tonight?
We had some great lively discussion about some marketing efforts that we're gonna try to start to formulate for our open enrollment students, so students who are residents here but choosing to go other places. So that was a really good discussion.
Interesting. And this was the, again, get it right, Citizens Communication Advisory Committee. Council.
Committee?
Committee?
Yes, one of them.
Whatever it is.
It was great.
CCAC.
Lots of good ideas.
Okay. Thank you. So in the future, when committees are held, we would ask the chair just to kind of report back to the.
Can I mention something?
Yeah, please.
Could you hand me that bright, beautiful color piece of paper?
Oh, yes, is that what's in front of all of us?
Yes. So I did have a committee meeting last Tuesday. I attended the Southwest Metro School Board meeting.
Yep.
It got pushed up a week due to MSBA leadership this week. And we approved the budget. And one of the things that we looked at was how intermediate districts are funded. So I thought I would share this, especially for the new boards members. This is just a little handout that we got that talks about how District 288 is funded.
And that's what we are. Or that's
Yes.
what
Southwest Metro, yes.
Fair answers.
Anyways, I just wanted to share that.
Okay, thank you. Do you have that? Did they give it to you electronically by chance?
I do have a electronic.
I know, I would like it, I just like saving things that way. Could you send it to me? I just want that.
Yeah, I would like
Just
that.
send it.
Sarah will send it
There
because I
is.
sent it to
There you
Sarah.
go. Thank you, Angela. All right, anything else I can do with reports? Well, you know what, we don't have a kind of round robin, so I'm gonna do it here. Again, for the new board members, one of the things we've done just by tradition, and it seems to work pretty well, is we just kind of go around the room and I'll initiate that, and if you have anything to add, something new, or want to be aware of, question to ask, so I'll always end at the superintendent. I'll start, Angela.
No, that was my one thing.
Okay, Christie. Okay, Paul.
I'm good.
Crystal, anything else?
Just want to say thank you to everybody who helped with the designation ceremony. We worked pretty hard on that last week, and I think it turned out really, really well. And
It was done really well.
thanks for everyone who came and put a lot of work into it. So
Outstanding.
she got it.
Well, you three, Ashley's not here, I think really deserve a lot of credit for that, so thank you very much. Keith, anything else? Jeff?
I'm good.
Okay. Dave?
Just looking forward to learning with those of you that are gonna be there over the next few days at the MSBA. So I think that'll connect a lot of dots for me in the different roles that I've had, so.
And back before I go to you, I'm actually gonna go back, because you happened to spin right when Angela was blocked from my view, but we are fortunate to have Councilwoman Angela, and Angela, I'm not, Contreras? Okay. Joining us, she is the, I think you've been designated the liaison from the city council with the school board, the district, so welcome, congratulations in your position, and I'll throw the same thing to you, if there's anything you'd like to add?
Would it be appropriate
Excellent.
to ask her to come up and tell us about herself?
Why don't you just stand there and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Cool. What can I say about myself?
You're on the hot seat.
Just tell them to read my article.
There you go.
Almost lost all newspapers.
There you go.
It was on the front cover, there you go.
It was.
Just here, I'm gonna be learning, there's lots of learning, so bear with me too.
Sure.
Just today I was doing Parks and Rec, and that was a lot to soak in, so being here tonight, I'm like, wait, there's lots more. So just take it easy too. I mean, for me, it's a lot to soak in, but thanks for the opportunity, because I know I worked with many of you guys while campaigning, and it was kind of hard, it's still hard. And just thank you for letting me be here.
If you have any questions, just reach out to any of us. I'm gonna jump back. Bob came in. Anything to add, Bob, from a community ed perspective?
Community Ed has an advisory council meeting next Tuesday night, 5 o'clock, meeting at the high school.
Okay.
And the advisory council wants to go through the building, and I said, well, if you want to do the tour right, it's a 90-minute tour, they can go through all the square footage there, but we'll probably shorten that in half. But we meet again next Tuesday at 5 o'clock.
And just so you know, that's one of the items that will be on the sheet that I send you, because we'll be looking for a representative of the board to represent the board on that group, because it meets periodically as well. So you'll see that. Okay. Matt.
Kind of already touched on it, but first of all, kudos to the event last Wednesday. It was very well done, well attended. Thank you to our sponsors for the food afterwards. The John King and Scotty O'Brien, I believe, were the hosts for that.
Yes, they were.
Otherwise, we talked about it. I was part of the girls' basketball tournament. Was able to be in attendance with my stepdaughter played. Phenomenal event. Great feedback throughout the building. Parents from other districts talking about how great the facility was. A lot of good feedback on the 10 courts, one roof, and in the winter time, moving around town is not always fun. So, yeah, it worked well.
Joe.
Just happy to be here. Finally.
That'll wear off.
That's right.
Yeah.
Judy, another one.
I don't know how many people at the ceremony last week also attended the Savers Showcase, but that was also fabulous. I remember when it started with one class begging people to come, environmental ethics, and begging people to come in, and it was crowded. I had to wait in line to talk to some people, and it just did my heart good. I think it was great on the part of our students, on the part of how many parents showed up, and community members, and of course our teachers who did the work to set it up.
So I will piggyback on a couple things said. Again, kudos for a great event and the showcase part of it. I made a point to get around to, I think I got to every single business that was there and thanked them for their support, for their participation in being a partner. And I also said partnership's two-way. It's not just what can you do for us, it's how can we be a better partner of you. So I want to thank all those partners who showed up from the local businesses, because that's really what's making our academies work. And there was a ton of them there. I'm sure you guys saw that, so they deserve a lot of credit. The other thing I want to say, and it was alluded to moments ago, but I think it's important to take a moment to recognize Dave. I guess this is official now that Mike's got both hands on the wheel. He was kind of sharing the wheel for the last 6 weeks, 2 months, whatever it was. But Dave has done a phenomenal job guiding the ship at the time we needed him, and has done a terrific job at that. So you're not going away, but you may be slightly changing roles, but I think it's important to recognize what you've contributed, and just thank you very, very much. Don't go anywhere. All right.
You're stuck.
Mike?
Well, two things. One, and I'll talk about the Sabre Showcase especially, and a lot of the other things that I've seen in the district, but that event in particular, it's a great reminder of what's right with kids. I think as a society, we're so quick to go to the negatives and talk about problems and what's wrong. And that was one of those events where I wish that everybody could come in and just see the great things that kids are doing, the demonstrations of learning. You know, my wife and I were there, and we were just walking by, and there was a teacher that said, hey, why don't you want to listen to this young lady? She's got to do a speech. And we sat on the learning steps, and my gosh, she was incredible. And that was repeated over and over and over. It was a great chance to see kids doing fantastic things. And from somebody who spent his life in education, that's the norm. And we don't talk about that enough. And so it was great to see. The other thing is, welcome aboard to the new school board members, and like I mentioned earlier, this is quite a week. We'll see you at MSBA Phase 1 training tomorrow, and we'll see you all day Wednesday at MSBA Phase 2 training. That'll be great. And some of you are gluttons for punishment. I'll see you at the conference on Thursday and Friday as well. But thank you for your willingness to serve the Shakopee community. And I look forward to working with each of you.
Amen to that.
Have they all gotten their 6-inch policy binders yet?
I don't know if that's been shared with them or not, but they have to read and
Light
test
reading
it on.
before tomorrow?
I got an orientation binder that was that big.
All right. We'll move on to item 14, recognition of visitors to the board meeting. Anyone that would care to speak? I think we only got one. Great. Janet, come on with that.
Well, I wasn't really planning on speaking, but.
Just for the record, sign in.
So I didn't really plan on coming here, but to speak, I want to welcome all the new members. Thank you. Wanted to see you sworn in, and that was great, and then the whole audience left, so. But I kind of like to listen to this stuff. So I just want to introduce myself. I'm Janie Hennis, and I am a lifelong community member, and I'm also cardiac partners for 32 years. And I just want to put a face to all the AEDs you're seeing in our schools. It's me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm very happy to say I've worked with Kane Smith, who was in our district until April, and then now it's Ed Zemet, who came on this summer. And Ed has been great to work with, and he and I have held meetings and collaborated, and I'm the fundraising behind it. He's the person that assigns people to check them. So essentially what was accomplished in the front end was 39 AEDs put throughout the district until August. So I tried to address at least 2 per school. I saw the need for upper and lower for our outdoor facility by the football field, and when the gates are locked, you can't get indoors. So I'm hearing a little bit of excessiveness, which makes me nervous or not nervous, it kind of irritates me actually, because it's like if those gates were locked and that AED's in there, that's why I have another one outside. So, yeah, it makes sense, but until someone explains it to you, it seems like, why do we have
Or
some
when they need it
mandate?
and they can't get to it.
Correct. showed that it could probably happen, but now our district is prepared. And that is my goal, to be prepared to save a life should it happen. And it can happen to our students, our teachers, our grandparents that go in. And even in our facilities, sitting here tonight, I was smiling because I know our upper track has one, our lower track has one, our entrance has one, our Sabre room on the second floor has one. I feel in my heart that we are covered for an unfortunate event. So, 39, Ed bought 3 more in December, and I was anxiously waiting to hear about our last 10, and I heard there was a meeting, I don't know if you were part of that last week, but they have okayed the last 10. I did the walkthrough, I said 20. I had to compromise, so I feel that we're still in good standing. Yes, we have a ton of them. We're probably well covered beyond any high school in this whole state. So maybe we can be a leader. And right now, there is no Minnesota state legislature that says we have to have these in our schools. What there is that students from 7 to 12 have to be educated in CPR and AED training. There is a video, a 5-minute video that I'm going to try and get out to all I know Ed's tried to distribute it, and Peggy Nerdahl, the health nurse, has tried to distribute it, but I'd like to kind of like over-exhaust that video and make it not such a scary thing, because it really isn't.
No. This is great, because I've never met you, but I've heard about you, and I've talked about it, and yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for your efforts in the past and your continuing efforts, and I just, having not met you, but knowing of you and knowing the work that you've been doing, I've been very, very impressed, and so I just want to say thank you, and I for one, and I know there's a whole bunch of other folks that are very, very appreciative, and I appreciate your dedication to that. And again, I think this is one of those things. Everybody will tell you what you should have done when something goes wrong, but I love that you've taken the initiative and had the foresight to really work on something and be proactive and preventative and try to solve a possible crisis before it happens. And so, thank you. I really, really appreciate your efforts.
I would piggyback Mike's remarks, and it's always better to have something and not need it than need it and not have it.
Exactly. And I want to point out that, not exact, Jeff will probably know the exact number, but I think under $25,000 has been spent by the district to buy these. The community has stepped up and donated all of these. So I think anytime, and so what happens is they donate an AED for $1,400, and I create a plaque for each side of the AED. So when you see those plaques and you see those people, thank them, because they were very generous.
But your coordination, and I don't think you're alone, but your coordination is what made this happen, James.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Remind me the life of the unit. This has come up before, but.
So the life of the unit is, it's 8 years.
Yeah.
But what was generously, so I've been working with Advanced First Aid, networking through my line of work, and he owns the business, Advanced First Aid. So he sold us at a very good deal these AEDs and a 3-year maintenance plan. So the maintenance plan is all electronic. So what I did, I've learned so much. Each AED has to be registered. It has to be checked every month. It has to have a physician sign off, and there's some other state legislation. So there's not a lot of them have them, but once you have them, you better have it all right. And so he does the checkpoints for that. So then what Ed does is he'll assign the lead janitor in each building to do the monthly checks. They're a little irritated with me, but I said, you'll get over it. It's only 2 once a month. And so that's how this is maintained. So the maintenance plan carries us for 3 years. And then at that point, it's $285 times 52 units. So that's where the cough goes. You go, ugh, now we gotta afford that. well, hopefully Ed can kind of budget that in somehow. And I asked him to have a AED budget line, so any of my donations can go on in that line, and I can follow that total. So after he orders the remaining 10, we should still have $5,000 sitting in there. So that's a start. I've committed to him that I'd continue doing fundraising, and so then I expect you all to be at my fundraiser on February 21st at the Brew Hall to play bingo.
What time is that?
I think it's still in the works, but I think 6 to 8. And I'm co-partnering with Alicia Bravo. She is a Shakopee resident who is also a survivor. And also my friend Paul from Advanced First Aid will have the defibrillator down there that we have. So it's just a big fundraiser. February is Heart Month, Women and Heart Disease, so try and get get people down there, so. All right.
Thank you.
Thought I'd better
Thank
put a
you.
face to
Thank you.
the machine.
All right, just to take note of upcoming meetings, we have the conference that's been talked about a few times today, but that's all this week. We have Finance Committee, if you take note, in advance of our next board meeting on the 28th. And then we have Facilities Committee, which is scheduled, we always synchronize those again. That may have to change, but hopefully we can keep that scheduled, because we've already kind of booked it that way, coming up on the 30th. And then you've got the list of all of them. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion Christie, a second?
Second.
Paul, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And you have completed your first meeting.